Hello everyone, welcome back to the Empowering Single Mother, Single Parent and Woman program hosted by Women Without Walls, and I'm your host Kiran Kaur, and I'm so glad to see you all here today. So this space is for you to feel seen, supported and equipped with tools to navigate the challenges that come with parenting and doing it solo. So today's session is especially important because we will be focusing on two deeply impactful topics addressing behavioral challenges. We will explore common behavior struggles in the children and how to respond in ways that are calm, constructive, and effective, and building our support network. No one is meant to do this alone. We will talk about how to find, grow, and rely on the right people around you. So, today's session is about strengthening both your parenting strategies and your personal support so you can feel more confident and less isolated. So, before starting this, I will welcome the Deonne Sargeant and Leslyn Davis who will present today's sessions. Thank you so much for coming.
You're
Thanks for
welcome. Thanks for
having
having us.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So now the session is upon you. You guys can continue your session. Thank you.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
So, as Karen said, we will talk about effective parenting styles and talk a little bit about behaviors and how we can handle those pieces. Just remember that what we say is not necessarily will work for everyone, but these are just basic behavioral techniques or strategies that we find work for most of us, right? It might not work for everybody, but these are just, yeah, that would work for most of us. So hopefully you can get some ideas from what we say and what we share, and you can use it within your home.
Mhm. All right. So we're going to start with the first one, which is different and common behavioral challenges based on ages and stages. So for most infants, toddlers, preschool, school-age children, and adolescents, you'll notice different behaviors and different challenges that come with each stage of life. And so it's kind of important for us to dive into those pieces first before talking about how we can correct negative behaviors from youth. So again, different stages mean different ways a child will communicate in the world and how they choose to engage with caregivers, peers, family, etc. And the most important thing is to understand where they are at and how they're trying to communicate their feelings and their emotions based on the stages of they are in their life. So that we wouldn't expect like an infant to start talking out of nowhere with English or their first language. We wouldn't maybe expect someone who's the age of 16 to just throw a tantrum on the floor and start screaming and crying. And sometimes they do that, but usually they're trying to tell us something. So it's best to us to understand what are they trying to communicate and maybe what are some challenges that they're facing based on those ages and stages. So we're going to see how that kind of differs for everybody. So we have ages and stages for childhood development.
All right. So let's start with infants from 0 to 12 months. So some of the things we'll definitely see from infants are crying because they are infants. Some of them might bite and they'll throw themselves around, right? Sometimes you see in the supermarket, they're flailing all over the floor because this is how they communicate, right? So we need to pay attention to those things, although it is annoying, although it is, for some parents, it's a shameful experience because they feel self-conscious. It is part of how they communicate. So we just need to know that, okay, we now have to deal with that, right? So first of all, we need to build healthy relationships with our children, right? To know that, okay, how do I comfort my child, or how do I figure out what's going on, what's wrong? Because obviously something is going on. Either it could be something as simple as, oh, I want that candy and mom said no, so I'm just going to throw a tantrum. How do I deal with that? Or it could be, I have a tummy ache and I don't know what to do about it, so I'm going to throw a tantrum because that's how I know to communicate, right? So we need to assess what's happening with that person. So building a healthy attachment with your child, so you have an idea of what, when they show you a behavior, what it really means. It's helpful from the start to building that healthy attachment, right? Showing positive experiences. They know that they can come to you as a parent because, okay, I know if I come to mom, I'm going to get, she's not going to be negative towards me or what I have to do or what I have to communicate, right? Some infants or children or preschool children, they might have mixed communications from parents, right? So they might think, I'm feeling this way. Do I go tell mom or do I not tell mom? Because I don't know what her reaction is going to be, right? So that attachment is not a strong one. So there's not a full trust in that parent or that individual. So that's how we need to start building that trust from the get-go, right? And having a sense of routine to know that, okay, if I'm out and about doing something, what is it that mom always say? Mom always say, if I'm out, maybe we can talk about what is expected at the supermarket, what I'm allowed to do, what I'm not allowed to do. Is there going to be a reward at the end? Is mom going to give me a treat? What are some of the behaviors that is expected as a child or as an infant at that age going out, right? So all these different things we need to look at, and even from when they're small, so that into the child or infant knows these are the expectations, right? So when you talk about toddlers, again,
can I add on one thing as
sure.
well? Just with like having a sense of routine, in terms of like having feeding time, for example, and having a sense of time where, you know, I get fed at this particular time, and maybe a parent has forgotten that it's this time right now they have to feed their child, then you probably will get yelling, crying, and screaming because that child has now had that sense of routine of knowing this is when something is supposed to happen. So keeping like aware of that as well, so the child then knows growing up further that mom was going to feed me. I know I will have something to eat in my stomach. And not have that sense of maybe a less of a secure attachment because their needs aren't being met. So you want to add that.
And then when you get to preschool age and 3 and 4, that's when they start to explore a little bit more, right? You start to hang out with your friends at school. You start to build friendships. You start to do all these different things. And with those comes picking up behaviors, right? It could be great behaviors. It could be behaviors that are not that great. So, right. So how do you deal with that as a parent? You continue to have open communication, which is important. Okay. Being calm and rational about what the consequences are. Let's say your toddler, or not your toddler, your preschooler comes and they have a couple of choice words that you don't really like. How do you deal with that? How do you get across to your toddler that, or preschooler, sorry, that, oh, that's not the right word to be saying, right? So you need to keep that communication open, and you need to be doing it in a positive way so that that child knows that, okay, I can come and I can talk to mom. And if mom or dad are speaking to me, in this case, we're talking about a single parent, we have that relationship that that child or infant or preschooler would know they can come and they can talk to me about it, right? And really working on that attachment that you have with your child. That is so important because it says to that child, doesn't matter what, I know my parent care for me, right? So those are some of the stages and ages and stages that we need to work on when we're developing with our child. It doesn't start when they're
well, there's more.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, say don't think we're not done yet.
No. I was just gonna say that kind of parenting doesn't necessarily start when they're 6 or 7 years old, right? We need to start it when they're young, when they're younger, to start building up those things, right? So you want to take that up?
School age
15? Yeah.
Okay, ask me questions then. Right. So like for school age youth, most challenging behaviors you might end up getting is like retaliation. So definitely trying to have a sense of independence, want to do things on their own where they may not be at the age as of yet to be able to do certain things. And they may make mistakes while they do them as they're trying to explore that new sense of independence. Again, you'll probably have those peer pressures as well within youth. who are around school age. So wanting to fit in a lot more with those particular peers, and that might be positive and or negative, but they are starting to hopefully build a sense of self.
Yes.
And with this age, things that I would say are most important to try and communicate with those kids and school-age children is the sense of responsibility. Definitely starting to give them, allowing them to have a sense of self, allowing for them to explore who they are, and also allowing them know that you are not a parent who is meaning to judge them, but just wanting them to be safe, be heard, and be cared for.
Yeah.
And allowing then also for when youth who are this age who are asking certain questions, keeping it age appropriate for their understanding in a way that allows them to know that you're validating their feelings and their emotions and maybe some of the questions they have. The last thing I would also say is definitely keeping that secure attachment. With a lot of these youth who are at school age, it is a very detrimental time of they're starting to separate themselves from parents, maybe family, and trying to become their own person. And so allowing for that open communication, allowing them to know they can still come to parents whenever maybe something is wrong or they've made a mistake, or when they're maybe feeling that level of shame, knowing that they're able to tell parent and say, hey, this what happened at school, please don't be mad at me. And keeping it calm, keeping it rational. And if you are going to fix that negative behavior, making sure that it fits the crime as well. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add is that it's important for parents to know that by age 5, a lot of the, I wouldn't say all of the learning, but a lot of the things that we need to learn is done by that time, right? In the sense of learning behaviors, learning a little bit about languages. They pick up so much between birth and 5 years old. So that's the time when we need to get a lot of those things under our belts with behaviors, with teaching, right? They say during that time, kids learn so many, you can teach them so many languages, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because their brain is wired and everything is flying, right? Everything is going in that brain because they're absorbing so much. So at that time, as we said, if they're learning so much, they're learning the positives and they're learning the negatives. So we need to try to get into them all those different pieces that would be beneficial for them growing up.
And I'm even going to add on to that as well about when we add things in like trauma or unsecure attachments as well to infants and to those within that infancy to age 5, because it does change the brain chemistry quite drastically in terms of how they handle their emotions, triggers, what else, even how they choose to communicate. All of that is actually very much changed in their brain of how they handle certain things. And that is when you will most likely see very like what they would say like acting out behaviors, or maybe it might be more physical, etc., is because of things like trauma or not necessarily having a very secure attachment with caregiver. So definitely taking that into consideration from that earlier on in stage.
Definitely. I know they also say that a lot of when children have trauma in their lives at an early age, it's those infants and those children who are very, very young, you will see the most impact because they think most of the time parents think when they're having issues at home, right? Oh, the little ones,
they don't notice anything.
Right? But they're the ones that get impacted the most. So be very, very aware of that.
And I would say, I think some of those things are the tell signs that you definitely sometimes tell if an infant has been through trauma is maybe not standing beside mom, for example, or standing by dad or standing beside caregiver, and instead just wandering off on their own and they're not looking back to see if you're there. Another one might be if they are screaming and or crying, they might not look for a caregiver for a sense of comfort. They're not looking for any of that. They might be looking at it elsewhere or hoping it from somebody else. Another one is being a lot more physical with peers or teachers or caregivers or daycare workers. That might be like punching, biting, etc., where some of these things are quite normal within like infant toddler age. but they're doing it in a sense of retaliation because their feelings are so big. So those were, I would say, a couple of the tell signs, if you can tell a youth is or an infant has gone through trauma. Moving on to adolescence. Ooh, don't we love them? I love the adolescents are great.
She just came out of it. I'm just kidding.
You're all right. I happen to work with these kids. I would say for sure, very challenging behaviors that you will know most likely with adolescents is because they have now from school age of exploring who they are and getting a sense of self. During adolescence, they are now becoming that sense of self. And they might have different values, different beliefs than maybe what they've grown up with. It is very much a nature versus nurture sort of mentality. And that in some families and some households, that might be something they embrace that change. And for other folks, they may have a really hard time with those pieces. And so that's where you will get the, you don't know me, I'm different than you are. And everything to them is just such big feelings. Everything is wrong in the world. And you might have a strong sense of justice for those in adolescence. And therefore, they might have a lot more words to say, many colorful words, because now they know what they mean. So you might get retaliation. You definitely will hear the, I'm calling the cops on you, because now they understand what their rights are as well. And they're using a lot more, what is that lovely C word? Not cognitive thinking. What is that? Critical thinking skills. Yes, they're using their critical thinking skills, which we love when adolescents use critical thinking. It's how they choose to use it and how they choose to express it and share that with their caregivers or with peers or with teachers. That then can sometimes be the issue. So the important things to highlight and the important things to know to help, I would say, adolescents along in life is teaching them consequences to their actions, knowing that they aren't immune to some of the outside forces that might impact them based on some of the actions they choose to do, which allows for more open communication. So allowing for a listening ear, actually engaging with that youth, even if they don't want to talk to you, trying to get them to talk to you and feel open and comfortable to talk to you. I think another one is being non-judgmental, I think is probably the biggest one. Sort of embracing maybe some of their new thoughts, the new attitudes, some changes, and letting them know that you're still always going to be someone who loves, cares, and wants for their good, for their safety. Is really good for, I would say, with adolescents. And if I would say those who are from the 13, 18-year-old range and they're sharing some big feelings and big emotions, validating those big feelings and emotions and taking them seriously. I find that even for myself, sometimes I hear some of the things my kids say, and I'm like, that's not that big of a deal in my head. I'm like, I promise you, this is gonna look so small in like 2-3 years, but to them, that's the ending of the world. And so when they know that you're taking them seriously and they know that you're listening to them, that allows them to know they're able to come back to you with any of those problems and any of those issues and feel a sense of secure attachment because they know that their caregiver has their back. And I think the last thing I would share that is most important is allowing for fun. A lot of times for adolescents, they want to take on all of the world and take on quite, I would say, adult responsibilities, but allowing them to still be children. Yes, they can take on some responsibilities, but they should still be allowed for play, allow for engaging with peers, hopefully to still make mistakes and know that mistakes are okay to make for as long as we learned from them and not shaming them for maybe mistakes that they have made in their life. Anything that you'd like to add on with adolescence?
No, I think you kind of covered most of it. I think at this stage, it's a balance of independence and being there for them as well. So you kind of have to balance that as a parent because they still want you there, but sometimes they pretend that you don't, that they don't. So
Yeah,
and it's that's the time as well where they're searching for answers for a lot of different things, right? Because now they're getting older and they realize that they're becoming more and more independent. So they're looking for answers. And sometimes you don't want them, well, you don't want them finding the answers in the wrong places, right? So keeping that communication piece open is very, very, very important.
Big time.
Uh, yes, I also like want to add in some stages, some stages happen that parents are not able to get, or like the one who is handling all the situation not able to get what is actually going on. But at that stage, if you are not aware, not able to do the things what they want, at that I'm just letting them know that we are here, we are trying to understand, and we are doing our best that whatever is going on will be like acceptable, and we will make you comfortable. So that thing also make up like different kind of bond in between both of them, that the next time when even the children they get that this is what was going on, they come, yes, I found out, yes, this is the reason. So they try to do more and more like conversation communication, so it make them comfortable. So just like if the parents are not able to do the thing what the kids want, but they try to make them feel that whatever it is, we are trying, but yes, there is a problem, so they understand. So it is like
Yeah.
good in both ways.
Yeah,
agreed.
it is true. And I think too that a lot of times as we talk about single parents and not necessarily being there all the time, it's so important to kind of build some sort of a network. Like we say, we talk about having a village, right? Around our kids. And it's so important for single parents to have that village around, because a lot of times they're working, they're out and about, they're trying to buy all the things for the kids, and they're trying to, make sure the ends meet. And a lot of times the youth are kind of left in limbo sometimes. I'm not saying all of the time. So it's nice to be able to have maybe a grandma or a cousin or a good friend who they trust to be that second almost parent, right? It is very important because it's very difficult.
I would say even like to that as well. It's like this is also why communication is so important, and letting your youth, letting your child know kind of that more, oh, well, dad's not able to maybe come to this award ceremony because dad has to work. And I'm going to try my best to make sure that someone else in our little community is able to be there in my place, which now allows that youth to know that it's not that he doesn't want to be there, but it's just that he's unable to, because he's making sure that this other part of my life and my needs can be met, which might be through finances or it might be through other means, but making sure that thing can then happen. And I know sometimes for some parents, it can be difficult to have that conversation and be like, but they don't need to know that. And, that's not their business. But it is a little bit of their business, because, they are feeling that sense of maybe rejection, or feeling as though maybe they're not good enough to have that time with you. And all these other pieces might be taking president of their mind to fill in those gaps because they don't have those answers. And so making sure that if you do give this answer to your youth, your youth best and how best to describe or communicate with them the issue, or maybe the hardships in a way that allows them to understand but still feel comforted.
Yes, so that they don't feel like the loneliness or they are alone, like that kind of feeling don't come in their mind, heart, because that is a like very big feeling.
Yes. Exactly. Big feelings are big
Yes,
feelings.
yes, it hit the mind. So like try to protect the children from that kind of feeling. So even they are working alone, but still they have in their mind that my parents are with me. They're not at that time, but yes, they are with me. I'm not alone.
Yes, exactly. Exactly that.
Yep. And that again I'm going to go back to attachment. That again goes back to having that great attachment with your child, so that they know that you're there for them.
Phenomenal.
Okay, so we can move on from this one because we kind of covered that.
Next, we're going to cover effective parenting techniques. And what do we love more than that? Than types of parenting styles? Oh, don't we love them? And I hate to say it, but I guarantee for most parents, you will fall underneath one of these categories. It might not be the most comforting at times, but they're there to kind of catch us when maybe we are slipping or maybe we're not noticing our own behaviors. Oh my king, I'm not a parent, but not noticing my own behaviors and how we're choosing to interact with our youth and children, because maybe that's the way that, you know, you were parented and you're like, I turned out great. Maybe that doesn't work for your kid. Right? And so I think we're going to be watching a video next for the types of parenting, if I'm not too mistaken. Yep.
Yeah. Welcome to Mr. Brain. Parenting is a wonderful journey, but let's face it, it can be challenging too. That's why we're here to help. Our parenting series is your ultimate guide to becoming an extraordinary parent. In the realm of child psychology, researchers like Diana Baumrind dedicated their lives to understanding the effects of different parenting styles. Through their meticulous research, they unraveled 4 distinct styles: authoritarian, permissive, authoritative, and uninvolved. Let's explore each one and discover their implications for our children's development. 1. Authoritarian parenting. Imagine the Smiths, a family with strict rules and high expectations. Mr. Smith believes in complete obedience from his children, Emily and Jacob. In their household, discipline is paramount. However, their parenting approach can be characterized as authoritarian. Mr. and Mrs. Smith's parenting style is marked by a desire for control and adherence to rules without much room for flexibility. For instance, Emily is passionate about painting and dreams of becoming an artist. However, her father disapproves of her creative pursuits, considering them a waste of time. He insists that she focuses solely on academic excellence. As a result, Emily feels stifled and discouraged from pursuing her true passion. The authoritarian parenting style, while seeking obedience and discipline, often sacrifices the child's autonomy and stifles their individuality. In the future, children raised under authoritarian parenting may struggle with making decisions, lack confidence in themselves, and find it hard to express their thoughts and feelings. 2. Permissive parenting. Now let's meet the Johnsons, a family that practices permissive parenting. Their household is filled with love, but rules and boundaries are scarce. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson shower their children, Lily and Ethan, with affection, allowing them to do as they please without much guidance or structure. For example, Lily wants to go out with friends late at night, even on school nights. Her parents rarely say no and often give in to her desires. While this permissive approach fosters a sense of freedom and flexibility, it can lead to challenges in self-discipline and respecting authority figures. Lily struggles to understand boundaries and lacks the guidance necessary to make responsible decisions. In the future, children raised under permissive parenting may have trouble controlling their impulses, struggle with authority figures, and find it challenging to set and achieve goals. Without proper structure and guidance, they may face difficulties as they grow up. 3. Authoritative parenting. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the Parkers, a family that embraces the authoritative parenting style. Mr. and Mrs. Parker understand the importance of balance. They create a nurturing environment while setting clear expectations and boundaries for their children, Mia and Noah. For instance, when Noah faces a disagreement with his friend, Mrs. Parker sits down with him, encouraging him to express his feelings and find a solution together. She values Mia's opinions and encourages open communication. Noah feels heard and respected, fostering a strong bond between parent and child. The Parkers' authoritative style provides structure, support, and guidance while nurturing their children's independence and individuality. 4. Uninvolved parenting. Lastly, let's step into the Wilsons' home, where uninvolved parenting takes hold. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson are busy professionals and neglect their children's needs. Sarah and Daniel are left to fend for themselves, lacking guidance, emotional support, and a sense of security. For instance, Alex participates in a school cycle race, but his parents fail to attend or show support. They are too consumed with their own work commitments to prioritize their interests and achievements. Alex feels neglected and unimportant, as if his passions and accomplishments go unnoticed. This uninvolved parenting style often leads to low self-esteem, emotional instability, and challenges in building meaningful connections. Understanding these parenting styles empowers us to make informed choices and create nurturing environments that best suit our children's needs according to time and situation. Join us on the journey of understanding your child's mind and becoming a better parent. Like and subscribe to stay updated with value.
Oops, it's not bad.
In a world.
Okay, that was great. Can you put in? Thank you. Go. To get big again. There we go. Phenomenal. So, as you do see though, with different parenting styles, I would like to say though, there was a lot of stereotypes within that video. And so I do want to like acknowledge the fact that where for some cultures it may fall under more authoritarian sort of styles of parenting, or more permissive, I believe. Permissive, right? Permissive styles. It's not just within different cultures, different homes. This can be anyone's parent, and how that youth and child chooses to enact or act out is completely kind of up to that youth and that child, based on maybe what needs they feel are not being met. And so I do also want to address that culture may play a role for some of these pieces, but it might not as well. And then, do you want to build on the points, or you think we covered that a little bit? Do you want to talk about this, or do you think we covered that a little bit?
I think
already?
we covered secure attachment and what that looks like. One of the things I wanted to, there is I don't think we have the video here, but you can look up secure attachment, and basically secure attachment is your infant knowing, or your child knowing, that when they're in distress, 100% their parents going to be there for them, right? If they're out playing, for example, if they're out playing and they get hurt, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. They're going to come to their parent for comfort, right? There are going to be, they can be some children who might hesitate in coming back to their parents. Let's say they're hurt and they want to comfort, and they want some comfort. They would choose not to go back to their parent because they do not know what they will get in that case. Is it a parent that's going to say, oh, I'm sorry that you got hurt? Is it a parent that's going to ignore them? Is it a parent that will be like, oh, you're okay, you can go back and play, right? So that child doesn't have a secure knowledge of what they're going to get. So sometimes they choose not to come back to that parent for comfort, or they might choose to go to someone else that they might see, right? So it is very important, as we talk about building attachments, that we do it from very young. A lot of parents I know feel that it's not important, right? It's like, oh, they're just little, they don't know anything. But now we realize, yes, they do learn a lot, and they're picking up all these different things. So it's very important to start building that bond and having that healthy attachment from when you have your child to later on in life. It's very important.
And to add on to that, even like, I know you're talking very much like physical things you can do, but even your facial expression. Having some like an inviting expression. I know there was a study done where they had a baby and the mom take to the study, where the baby would look towards a parent after crying, and the mom would kind of embrace the child, have a facial expression that is quite comforting, let them know that I'm here to support you, I'm here to comfort you. And then they had the baby go away for a little bit, and they told the mom, don't smile, don't engage, don't hug, don't do anything. Just stand there and just look at the child. And so they brought the baby back in, and the mom did just that. She didn't help out when the baby was crying. She just stared, and they noticed the child's brain chemistry start to almost work backwards, where it's no longer seeing the mother as a sense of comfort, seeing a sense of able to emotionally regulate themselves, and instead just building up all these very big feelings with nowhere to go. And with that being said, we were noticing pieces of, I would say, trauma start to ensue, because now that is a traumatizing experience of I don't have someone there to comfort me, to show me what I need for my needs to be met. I am nothing to this person who I thought was supposed to care for me. And so there is I would say, quite a lot of studies to show the importance of secure attachment, especially for infants at a young age.
Yeah. And I think we have a couple of videos that we can attach to this so that you can see that. But that one we showed was just talking about what attachment is. But there's a couple other videos. What do you mean?
Parenting styles.
Parenting styles, sorry. So there are a couple of other videos that we can add on to this to show what those various attachments are and what they look like in infants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up, setting up boundaries and healthy communications to allow for effective parenting. Because effective parenting ain't going to be effective unless you're able to properly communicate them with your kid. And if you're unable to have actual proper boundaries put in place for that youth to then respect.
Respect, yes.
Yeah, it's a big piece. Would you like to go over some?
Sure. So types of boundaries that we have and how to communicate them. We talked about physical boundaries, which we know about, personal space, privacy, and our bodies. So those are things that we know about. Emotional boundaries are thoughts and feelings, values and beliefs that we grow up with as an individual, right? How much are you willing to share about those boundaries that you grew up with? A lot of times you find, especially in Canada, we have so many different cultures, so many different boundaries and values that at times we don't know where the line is drawn, because as an individual, I might grow up with different boundaries and someone else might grow up with different boundaries. And then sometimes we kind of
tussle.
Yeah. It's like, oh boy, we don't do this or we don't do that, right? So very much so it is very important to, especially in this day and age, to kind of learn about different boundaries and different communication styles that each person has, right? So teaching our child to be respectful of other people's cultures. I mean, even talking a little bit about what are expectations, what is okay, what is not. Material boundaries, giving and lending, right? Lending things. What does that look like in cultures and things like that? Monetary, making certain decisions, right? So all of these different things are very, very important for us to share with our children, and as they grow, depending on their age, right? So a lot of times I know we talk, and some of our topics are we're trying to divide them into ages and stages. However, we just need to remember that some individuals are developed more than others, right? So we also have to look at that when we're talking about youth who might be 12, 13-year-old, and those who might be a bit younger. Sometimes the younger kids can understand a lot more because of how they grow up, right? So just remember to take what we say and you fit it to who you are dealing with and what your individuals are.
And
right?
I do want to add, because I'm like, ooh, I really want to add stuff,
Okay.
which was around the physical boundaries, especially having your kids learn autonomy to their bodies and their personal space and their privacies. So that might be looking like if your kid's like, I don't want to hug uncle, or I don't want to hug auntie, or I don't want to hug this family friend of yours, and not pushing them and saying, well, they're your cousin, you got to give them a hug, you don't want to be mean, but instead backing them up and saying, well, they said they don't want to give you a hug, I'm not going to force them to give you that hug, right? And the other thing might be like allowing them to have their personal space. So if they're, I would say, like school age to adolescence, and they close their door because maybe they're getting changed, not just bursting the door open and saying, oh, instead, allowing them knocking on the door, because that then will teach them to also knock on caregivers and other folks' doors, to have that sense of boundary and respect as well. That then also allows them to understand that what they say, and when they do say no, it's respected, and that then also needs to be respected from others as well, right? It allows them to now feel not only a sense of autonomy for their own body and for their own sense of self and consent, but that works towards, on the flip side, with other people's as well, especially for, I know, our male identifying individuals where, you know, feeling sometimes as though it's a little bit hard to, boys will be boys, or they're just rough housing. It's nothing that's too deep, too serious. But if they're saying, hey, this hurts and I'm uncomfortable, taking what they have to say seriously. And the same thing going with emotional boundaries. Not just going with like also values and belief, which are, I think, a really big one as well. But also when they do have particular questions, or maybe they're starting to express themselves in another way, maybe they come out to you and they're trans or gender diverse, or they're part of the queer community, having them know that they are loved and they are accepted, and that, you know what, I'm willing to open up and be there for you and support you while you go through these things, instead of having them feel maybe shamed or isolated when they do share those pieces about themselves. And then last but not least, when it comes to even material boundaries, as we saw in the previous parenting style, the pessimist or the uninvolved parent as well, not having rules around like how much money you give your children, what you choose to give or lend or take, can also come down, trickle down to your youth and your children to feel as though they don't have to ask for certain things, but just have a right to your belongings. And on the flip side, when parents feel they have a right to a youth's belongings, that can end up with a lot of resentments, a lot of sneaking around, and maybe even being I would say like two sides as well, of being like, oh yeah, I act this one way at home, and then they're outside and they're off the handles. So being able to kind of have those boundaries set in place, I think, are also super important. When it comes to, you're gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna, when you finish speaking, it's fine.
And that's gonna go to verbal boundaries. So
I was just gonna say, just verbal boundaries are so important, especially as you get into middle school and you get into high school. It's very important that you have a strong sense of self. Sorry, I can't speak. Rude. Yeah. So having a strong sense of self is so very important, and knowing how you communicate to others. You don't necessarily, at times maybe you want to be rude, but other times you're like, you know what, how do I say something to get my voice across without being totally offensive? So being able to learn how to do that is very, very important, right? Especially in this day and age. And what you feel is appropriate to discuss. Not everything that everyone is talking about you feel comfortable. How do I get myself out of those conversations? What is it I do and say in order to get myself away from things that I feel it's not comfortable for me?
Agreed. Like letting your kid watch Housewives. Wouldn't recommend. Why? Because the language they have within Housewives. You see those kids with their little Barbie doll saying, Krisha, you went and took my man. And they're already playing those scenarios because that's what they see. And that's the language that they hear others saying. And therefore they'll just mimic it. Yeah. And it's a language we want them to maybe be sharing outside of the home with peers when maybe they are seeing something happen.
Yeah. So very important, that verbal piece.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we talk a little bit on here, it talks a little bit about limiting your energy given to others and how to manage your time. And a lot of times I think in school now we talk about time management and financial management. I mean, there's lots of these different things that we can learn as they get older, and it's up to parents, I think, to also encourage their kids to learn about these things, because it's so important in our society today to learn how to do these things, so that one, you don't have burnout, two, people are not necessarily taking advantage of you, and you're able to stand up for yourself. Right. So it is very important to learn some of these areas that we're talking about.
Yeah, very much agreed. And I think when it comes to how to communicate that and put them into practice, it's being a role model for your youth and kind of mimicking what those look like in a healthy manner. Being able to communicate using very maybe stern language, but still being very comforting and still being kind when you say certain things, and giving them reason as to why you may have this boundary with your child or with your youth, and letting them know that other folks might not give them a reason as to why, and that's totally up to them. But I think as a caregiver and as a parent, letting them know that why is helpful for them to process some of their feelings around rejection, because rejection is a really hard feeling to go through. And a lot of youth, I know even some adults that still struggle with that feeling as well. Next, we have effective consequences.
Okay.
Ooh, this one's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to let you take over this one.
Okay. So effective consequences. So when we talk about effective consequences, I know a lot of times, some parents, I guess, resort to yelling, screaming, hitting. That's the first thing some of us
Think
go
of
to
sometimes, yeah.
when we think about consequences, right? And we kind of broke down punishment or negative consequences into a little bit of some categories. So we have punishment, right? So punishment is to inflict pain, so by hitting, to shame a child, and that's by using words that might be have a negative connotation to the child or about the child. Not effective for long-term change. So when we inflict punishment on someone, it's not really for long-term change, right? Because you're hitting, you're saying something in the hopes that you will stop the behavior right away, but it's not necessarily effective for long-term. The child is not learning anything positive from that particular punishment or that particular thing that's happening. So we need to then figure out, okay, what it is we need to do in order to make it effective for that child and for you as a parent, right? And we talk about knee-jerk responses. Knee-jerk responses would be my child decide to
knock over your coffee that you made.
Yeah, knock over the coffee or take a candy that they're not supposed to. And our first response is to yell or to hit or to grab, right? Because that's the first thing we think of. Give that to me, right?
Yes.
And those responses are not necessarily teaching anything. It's just telling the child, okay, maybe I'll do it, but when they're not there, I'll do it, and I'm gonna get what I want, right?
Or maybe they teach them not to be scared of you and be like, oh no, I'm not going to go anywhere near you.
These persons are one thing I was saying too is that remember that we are bigger and stronger and than little ones, right?
Mhm.
So they already have that fear of that person, even by their size and by how they speak. So doing some of these things are a lot of times not even necessary, right? If we use it effectively. Some negative consequences is positive discipline. For example, we talk about using timeouts, right? When you have a child in timeout and they're done timeout, are you having conversations about what happened? Are you being there for the child to find out what it is that went on? What is the change? What is this that really happened? So that you can have an idea and they can have an idea too as to what should be happening,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Build your child's ability to engage in pro-social behavior. Take them out to groups. Have them interact with other children, right? What it is they're seeing, what it is they're doing, right? If you need to correct them for something, correct them appropriately in front of others so they're not being shamed or feeling like, oh, my parents did, you know how we feel. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to give consequences, make sure that those things are not happening, that your children are not feeling a sense of outright shame, right? Because that's not a good feeling to have. Allow for growth and mistakes. We know as kids grow, yes, you're going to have mistakes. We're not talking about a teenager that, they're now 15, 16, and they're doing something they know they shouldn't be doing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about younger kids who are learning, right? And do it with patience and with an attitude of a sense of calm, right? Because they're learning and they're getting that tone of voice from you. They're getting that attitude from you. They're also getting that sense of, oh, I can touch you. Even though I'm angry with you, I can touch you in a way that is still kind, right? I don't have to be punching or hitting in order to get my point across. right? So all of those pieces are very important.
And I would like to add, even though my mother does say that teenagers may know what they're doing at times, with our like school-age children and adolescents, they may be acting out due to friends and peers. It may be that maybe they're being bullied at school and this is a whole new behavior, and they feel this might be the only way for them to get what they want in that particular scenario. For example, you might have a kid and they're suspended, and you're like, "Why the heck are you suspended?" And they're like, "Well, I punched this kid in the face." And you're like, "Well, why would you punch them in the face?" "Well, they grabbed my hair and they slammed me into a wall, so I punched them in the face." Mm-hmm. And so that is not an effective way to handle conflict, but within that parameter of that scenario, that is what they felt needed to be done. And so allowing for like that to be a mistake that they made, but then having positive discipline and allowing for them to have that communication to know what to do next time and setting up like a plan of action for them as well, because they're also still growing and they're still learning, as we all are. We're not perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah, and as I said, no one's perfect, and we can't oopsie, sorry.
You're good. You good?
Yes, we're good.
So here we have types of consequences. So again, with consequences, you know your child best, and you know what consequences will work based on the scenario, based on how your child reacts to certain consequences, and maybe certain pieces that have happened in the past. So we want to make sure when it comes to consequences that these are a couple things you kind of want to follow. So it being mild. So you don't want to cause any physical or emotional harm that can end up triggering your child and causing trauma. And for a lot of folks, people use the word trauma quite lightly. But trauma is when a big enough event happens that causes lasting emotional or mental implications or struggles later on in life, and even right afterwards. And if you do cause emotional harm, that could be a form of trauma for your child about how they choose to communicate with you next time, or even with others, because of that consequence, or maybe of that yelling or that physical ailment that might have happened during then. We want to make sure we're going to be kind. So it doesn't involve anger, yelling, humiliation, or threats. If you find that your young middle school child was texting a boy, don't shave off their head on social media and videotape it for everyone to see on Facebook. That isn't going to teach your child not to text that boy again. That might just end up having them keep it a secret, and potentially could end up breaking that attachment they used to have with you. And we want to make sure it's logical. So it fits the misbehavior and not blown out of proportion. So we want to make sure that the punishment not only fits the negative behavior, but it's correcting the negative behavior because it's in direct contact with each other. I want to make sure it's instructive, so it involves practicing the missing skill. We don't want to just give them a random punishment that has nothing to do with the skill that they're missing, right? We want to also make sure it's understood, so spoken about with the child and agreed to beforehand. We want them to understand what the implication is. We want to make sure they understand why that that negative consequences, or why the negative consequence, right? Yeah. Why it's in the first place, right? We want to make sure it's simple. So we want to make sure it's within the child's ability to understand and complete and be tracked by parents effectively. That's just being that there's different ages and stages, so different things that they'll be able to comprehend, different things they'll be able to do. I just want to make sure that that's going to be something they're able to actually commit to and understand what they are. Loving, we have consistent. So negative behaviors result in negative consequences. So not just doing it one time and then being like, it's fine, but giving them that level of consistency is helpful. Loving, so followed by sincere expression of love. Let them know that, this doesn't mean I dislike you as my child, doesn't mean I hate you. This is just because XYZ thing happened, and therefore this is the result of XYZ thing. But once this is over, we'll have a quick discussion, a quick chat, and safe, so never violates a basic human rights to their needs, So it doesn't like remove food, doesn't cause emotional damage. It's not removing their autonomy to certain things. Because children do have rights and they need to be followed. You want to go over like some of the consequences types?
Sure. One other thing I wanted to add was that some parents do try, some kids work well with contracts. So if you have a youth, you know that they have a particular device, or there's something that they have that you know may cause some problems in the sense of like overuse. Some parents would decide, okay, you know what, we're going to sign up a contract where we're going to come up with timelines, we're going to come up with consequences, and we're going to start this before you get this device or before you get such and such a thing, right? So that that child or that youth have a say in, okay, this can be my consequence. And both of you agree that, okay, we're going to work on this, right? So those are some of the ways in which, especially with older kids, you can also work with that. And sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's not, but you can also work on it and tweak that contract, right? It kind of teaches them responsibility, and everyone knows where you stand, right? The youth know where you stand, parents know where you stand, because it's written right there and everyone had an agreement on it.
I will say this is very good for some youth who who have ASD, so autism spectrum disorder. Having those sets of rules in place might be very helpful for them to be able to see, agree to, and know that their sense of justice is being respected because they agreed this beforehand, and they know the rules that we follow within our household. And this can also be effective for other youth who are part of the neurodiverse community as well. Having those be written out in front of them, knowing that this is the action to the consequence, and not necessarily feeling like the sense of unjustly as well. Because for a lot of them, when that feeling of being a situation is unjustly, that may cause, acting out, may cause a sense of fear, upset, anger, because this is not what they feel is effective or what they deserve.
Yeah. So as we say with toddlers, communication is key. Lots and lots of talking, lots and lots of role modeling, right? So that's the way they're going to learn. So you're going to be doing a lot of talking, a lot of role modeling, giving the space for, for mishaps and things like that. And just putting in whatever consequences that you feel is there. That's positive. That's good for them, right? It's okay for them to mess up, but then they also need to know when they mess up, right? So to say, okay, Johnny, you did this. This is what you need to do, right? So we teach them and we role model for them. Preschool age, as we talked about, types of consequences. When they bring stuff from school that maybe they shouldn't, or say things to the teacher that maybe they shouldn't,
or bring animals from outside.
They
love to bring animals from outside and be like, here, look at this insect, and you're like, no.
Yeah, all those different things, how do we deal with that, right? So sometimes it might be just a simple timeout, or it might be you and your child going into school to have a conversation with that teacher to figure out, okay, how can we make things better, right? So the way in which you handle the situation is how your child will know that, okay, I understand this consequence, right? I'm able to practically understand what's going on, why I got this consequence, right? So these are some of the ways in which we need to be creative as parents, especially now that our children are even more advanced than we were at their age, right? So we need to figure out and know, how things work, right? So school age removal of those trigger items, sometimes by, taking things from them, right? That's a consequence. That's still a positive consequence. Adding to the responsibilities based on the behavior. So it might be with chores, it might be with saying, okay, you need to be doing a little bit more homework because your grades are slipping, or your teacher says that this is what's going on, right? So all these different things, we try to make the consequences really about what the behavior is, and not just out of left field that it doesn't have some sort of comparison. Yeah.
Next, so we have anger management. Because with consequences, you probably will feel quite a lot of anger, which is understandable. You might feel disrespected, you might feel like you're being ignored, tested, boundary testing, under a lot of stress, and you also might have the skills to be able to cope with this amount of difficulties potentially, especially if you are a parent that may have a youth that is struggling mentally or neurodivergently. You don't have the experiences to know how to work with your child to make sure they're able to succeed, and maybe the way that they're choosing to act out or uninvoluntarily acting out. But in order for our children to feel secure, right, we have to and feel safe and love. We also need to manage our feelings. And during those hard situations, how are we coping with our anger and with our stress to still allow for our youth and our children to still feel they are supported and they're loved by us, but also to fix some of those maybe negative behaviors that they're showcasing.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I wanted to add that might also mean that we have to maybe seek assistance outside, like in the maybe professional, maybe a counselor, maybe a doctor, depending on what is really going on with that child or with you as a parent and that child.
Yep.
So yeah,
very much agree. Support is not something to be feared. If anything, it is something for your toolbox, and it not only allows you to thrive, it allows for your child to also thrive, and also thrive in community as well. So some coping techniques. So teaching your body how to relax. So usually when we are triggered or we're upset or we're feeling some big emotions, our body will usually go into like this fight, flight, or freeze response potentially. And these are all hormones that will sometimes raise our blood pressure, sometimes make us feel really heated, our heart might be pounding, because we feel like we're in the sense of fear or we're unable to control the situation. And when that kind of happens, we may do irrational things and we may say irrational things because we feel threatened and we want to feel safe and we want to feel like everything is back underneath control. So learning how to bring our body back to a calming level, learning how to allow our body to go back into that relaxation period and allow us to breathe. Instead of feeling like we're suffocating. And so some things that might help might be meditative breathing. So there's something called the 4-7-8 breathing technique, which involves breathing in for 4 seconds and then holding your breath for 7 and then exhaling for 8. Doing this for about 3 times in a slow, calm manner is quite helpful to be able to bring your breathing back to where it needs to be and hopefully clear a little bit of your mind. This can also be seen as like a little bit of self meditation, which you're able to find usually on any YouTube video. They're great. The last one also is a meditative countdown relaxation. So visualizing a place of comfort. This might be maybe a childhood home. Maybe this is a vacation that you really want to go on to. But being able to count down from 10, and as you count down from 10, allowing your body to start to untense, maybe unclenching your jaw, maybe you might be having a hand in a fist and slowly letting it kind of go. And as you are counting down, you're leveling out your breathing to start to feel a little more relaxed and calm. And maybe you do these techniques when you say, hey, you need to go in a timeout for maybe 5 minutes, and I'm going to go take a break. And I am going to calm myself down. I think sometimes I think for parents sometimes feel like they're unable to express their frustration to their children and feel like they have to keep everything bottled up all the time because they don't want to necessarily have a negative impact on their child by saying, I'm angry at you or I'm angry at the situation. But letting them know that parents feel angry too at times. It's just how we handle our anger and how we choose to handle our feelings and our emotions, because we can't always control people and what they do, but we can't control how we react to them. And just as we want to teach our children those same lessons, we need to also mimic those same actions as well, so they know better. Anything you want to add?
No, I was gonna add taking time out for yourself and the child, and you said that as well. So because that's that's very important to know that, okay, I'm not able to handle this. I need to go take some time for myself. So yeah.
I may say, I have to shut up Bluey. Okay, it's a great cartoon. I love it, but they do have an episode where the mom just says, "I need to take 15 minutes. Can you allow me 15 minutes?" And it wasn't really even the husband that helped out, but the neighbor next door to say, sometimes your mom just needs some time. Doesn't mean she doesn't love you, but even I need 5 minutes sometimes. So let's do an activity together. And this is why having community is so important, and having other folks who are able to maybe take on some of those parental roles or taking up some of those, even like babysitters, etc., are important, because it allows us to breathe, so we're able to do better for children, right? Coping skills,
Coping skills,
which just allows us to open our window of tolerance, which is just a big fancy word to allow us to regulate our feelings and allow for open communication in a way that is effective and not just a screaming match with children.
Building resilience.
Isn't that a big one? Not just giving up on maybe our youth and children, saying this is hopeless, I'm not a good parent, I can't do any of this on my own, I suck, and this is the worst thing ever, and I'm frustrated. Those feelings they're normal. Honestly, having a sense of doubt is a part, I would imagine, of parenting. I'm not a parent, so I got no idea, but I'd imagine so. And so having those sense of resiliency skill to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, know how to cope with those big feelings, and being able to control what we can in that moment, and knowing who we're able to call as well, who are able to help us, support us through those moments and through those challenges, so that we're able to help our child and able to, allow for that secure attachment to stay secure and not break.
Yeah. And I mean, as parents, we have to remember parents are people too.
Yep.
Right. We're people too. So there are times when you're giving your child consequences, or you're trying to figure out your day, and you're struggling because you know what, today I'm not feeling it. I don't feel like doing all these different things, and you need someone to pour into you as well. Just as much as you're pouring into your child, you're pouring into your job, you're pouring into all these different things, but no one is pouring into you, right? What do? Right? You can maybe, as we said, maybe try to see if we can have some community partners that can help out. There maybe aunts and uncles, if there's aunts and uncles, church members, if you belong to a particular church, and there are people that can help. So all these different things help you, so that in turn you can then help your child, because once you're doing well, then your child is doing well. If you're not doing well, then your child's not doing well, right?
Yes.
So it is so important. And I know I'm preaching to the crowd that, it's difficult as a parent to follow through with these things, but we really need to do those things. We really need to find ways in which we can have some release of tension. I would say positive relief of tension, so that we can then be good for our families.
Yeah. Very, very much agree. In conclusion, parenting's hard. It's even harder when you do it as a single parent. But being able to effectively communicate with your youth and your child, and knowing some of the ages and the stages that they are at, and being able to be mindful about what your youth's and what your kiddos' needs are, and being able to walk with them as they go and, start this whole journey called life, as they're looking probably towards you for guidance, and looking at you for support and knowledge as well, seeking out for your own self, because you're also going through life, for that knowledge, support, and community, to allow you to parent your child in an effective way. And even during some of those harder moments where maybe they are at a stage where they are quite difficult and maybe a little fussy, and maybe going through quite a lot mentally as well, knowing where to turn, knowing who to talk to, and knowing that you aren't always alone in these situations, and reaching out for help when need be, and keeping an open mind to maybe what your youth is going to and where it ends up going.
I think along with that is that now I guess in our society, there's so many community resources available, very diverse cultural community resources as well. And I think it's much easier to find that sort of help now than maybe previously. So please look out for that. Reach out to your child's school. They should have some resources. Reach out to I would say also even your doctor, even if it's a walk-in, right? Reach out to those individuals that can also help you to kind of find, especially in your community as well. Some individuals live in the same community as their culture, right? Ask around, what are some of the resources that are out there that can help, so that you know that you're not alone. That at times when you feel that, okay, how do I parent in this Canadian culture? Where do I find the help for that? Who can I talk to kind of help me move along the way, right? So very, very, very important to find that support that is needed.
And I'm also funny enough, I'm going to actually add on to that quickly, which is just around, I know organizations, especially systems are scary, especially for people of color. And so realizing that and looking for what your rights are, and being able to reach out to other organizations who understand how the system works, and asking those questions on, CAS was called to my household. What are some things I should know? Talking to someone who might be a part of CS and who has your best interest, talking with them and sharing pieces around what is the support that I'm able to gain by having maybe a caseworker with me and my child, because maybe it is really difficult and you aren't able to be there for your kid as much as you wish you could be because of the job and other pieces as well. Reaching out to youth mental health organizations as well doesn't mean you're a failure of a parent. It just means that you're doing what you can to help support your youth in a way that maybe you don't have the skills at the moment to be able to support them in that way. And I think that's where it really comes into finding community and finding support to help you through that is the most important, because you're able to then ask the questions to make sure you are not only informed, but for you to also inform your youth or your child, depending on the age that they are, so they understand what the situation is.
And that's why things like this it's just we're not saying we know it all.
No, not
however, it's just a stepping stone to kind of think, right? A stepping stone to kind of know certain areas with which you can work with and work on. So I'm very much hopeful that the information given here was informative and that it was helpful, and that people will, be able to, especially single moms, will be able to find some nuggets that they can take to help along the way. Thank you.
Yes, that is really amazing. Lots of things are related to our life, like even the personal life, and I also work with the kids, and I can also relate all the things in my professional life also. So yes, there were lots of things where I was like, yes, it happens, it happens.
Yeah,
It is
it does.
normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Even as a kid, in personal life with our parents, and in my professional where I'm taking care of the kids. So yes, lots of things are same, will relate to individuals' daily life. Very informative. Yes, I get lots of things. How to handle lots of situations. Yes, that is really amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
welcome.
much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
I think you stopped
So-
sharing.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did stop sharing. That was me.
Yeah.
I did that.
Okay.
So thank you all. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been a powerful session filled with real conversation and shared experiences and strategies we can start using right away. And remember, behavioral challenges are normal part of parenting. What matter most is how we respond with patience, intention, and love. And just as importantly, remember that you don't have to do this alone. Building a strong support network is one of the best gifts you can give yourself and your family. And if you find this session helpful. So I will like encourage you to share it with others and spread the information. So, and my guest speakers, you both have done an amazing job. Thank you so much for give us lots of information, and thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having
Thank you.
us.